those issues. Last week, like him, I was in Brussels meeting with heads of government and leaders of European socialist parties, one of whom said to me, what they said, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, if the party opposite would care to think for a moment about what's going on, one person said to me, and I thought it was quite profound, he said, "We are discussing the future of a continent," and one English Tory has reduced it to the issue of taking away benefits from workers and children. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that this entire negotiation has not been about the challenges facing our continent, neither has it been about the issues facing the people of Britain. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, it's been a theatrical sideshow about trying to appease or failing to appease half of the Prime Minister's own Conservative Party. That's not to say that there haven't been some worthwhile changes. The red card system to strengthen the hands of national parliaments is something that we and these benches have long backed. Indeed, it was in the Labour manifesto for the last general election. It was not actually in the Conservative manifesto for the election, but we welcome a conversion where it takes place. We would also welcome the symbolic amendment on ever closer union. Britain's long-standing decision not to join the euro or Schengen has been settled and accepted a long time ago. But, Mr. Speaker, we see the influence of Tory party funders on the Prime Minister's special status, not for Britain, but for the City of London interests. It's the same incentive that caused his friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, to rush to Europe with an army of lawyers to oppose any regulation of the grotesque level of bankers' bonuses. It's necessary to protect the rights of non-Eurozone states, but not to undermine EU-wide efforts to regulate the financial sector, including the boardroom pocket stuffing in the City of London. Labour stands for a different approach. That's why our members of the European Parliament are opposing the dangerous elements of the very secretive transatlantic trade and investment partnership negotiations, which threaten to undermine national sovereignty, push the privatisation of public services, drive down standards for workers, consumers, environment and public health. Mr. Speaker, human rights ought to be part of that treaty. Indeed, I believe it should be a feature of all trade treaties. Then there is the so-called emergency brake. We support the principle of fair contribution to social security. However, does the evidence not back up the claim that in-work benefits are a significant draw for workers who come to Britain from the European Union? The changes the Prime Minister has secured do nothing to address the real challenges of low pay in Britain, undercutting of local wage rates and industry-wide pay agreements. They won't put a penny in the pockets of workers in Britain, nor will they stop the grotesque exploitation of many migrant workers or reduce inward migration to Britain. Will the Prime Minister tell us what discussions he had to get European rules in place to protect the going rate and to stop agencies bringing in cheap labour to undercut workers in Britain while exploiting the migrant force? Did he speak to other EU leaders about outlawing the so-called Swedish derogation from the Agency Workers Directive, which threatens to undermine one of the key achievements of the last Labour government by allowing unscrupulous employers to use temporary agency staff to undercut other workers? These would have been positive and worthwhile discussions to tackle low pay, reduce in-work benefit costs and protect workers. We must, on all sides, Mr. Speaker, be clear that Britain has benefited from migration. from EU workers coming in to work in our industry and in our public services to fill gaps. For example, the thousands of doctors and nurses who work in our National Health Service.